Beth and Rip's Yellowstone spinoff confirms Taylor Sheridan cannot escape Kevin Costner's legacy. Yellowstone's upcoming Beth and Rip spinoff confirms that Taylor Sheridan can't shake Kevin Costner's legacy as John Dutton IDI. Paramount Network's hit neo-western wrapped up its run with a show-changing decision for the Dutton kids to save the ranch from developers. With John IUA dead, Beth and Case scrambled to ensure that their dad's dream of keeping it intact remained, and the solution was essentially giving the land back to the Broken Rock tribe. It's difficult to imagine if John IUI had approved of this if he was still around, but it was the best outcome given the circumstances. The Yellowstone finale effectively wraps up the Duttons' collective story in the land that they occupied for 7 generations. However, the franchise will live with several spin-offs coming. Sheridan's universe already has an ongoing prequel with 1923, but his storytelling will continue in modern times with the Madison, a spin-off led by Michelle Pfeiffer, and another show spearheaded by Cole Hauser and Kelly Reilly. Currently untitled, Beth and Rip's spin-off story remains unclear, but its existence confirms that Sheridan can't escape Costner, even after John I.E. met his end in a show that is now finished. As fan favorites, Beth and Rip's story was heavily focused on in the main show. Yellowstone tackled their love story extensively, although since the flagship was still an ensemble, there are bits and pieces of their history that remain unexplored. Both as a couple and individually, Beth and Rip are very interesting, hence why it made sense that the franchise's next offshoot will front both of them. That being said, it isn't lost that what's being billed as a spin-off is essentially just Yellowstone Season 6. Especially given how prominent the characters were in the original series. This is actually a point of contention for the upcoming endeavor right now. Yellowstone's Beth and Rip spinoff is potentially facing legal issues with regard to streaming rights. Sheridan and his creative team need to prove that the offshoot isn't simply a continuation of the mothership. Somehow, it's a blessing, since it forces the screenwriter to come up with new takes for the said characters. Regardless of how Sheridan deals with this issue, however, Beth and Rip's offshoot is the closest thing that viewers will ever have to Yellowstone Season 6. Beyond being interesting as characters, it's also worth noting that Beth and Rip are John I.E.'s best successors. Case never really wanted to have anything to do with the ranch, and had a contentious relationship with his dad. This doesn't mean that he didn't love him, he did. However, he was too different from him. Jamie, on the other hand, was so desperate for John I.E.'s approval that he became resentful when he continued to fail to get it. Meanwhile, Beth was a daddy's girl through and through. Granted that she didn't agree with everything he wanted to do, but at the end of the day, she was loyal to him. The same can be said about Rip, who wasn't related to him by blood, but was arguably the son he always wanted. Because of what John IUA did for him, Beth's husband was a committed ally to the Dutton family patriarch. Together, Beth and Rip are the best stalwarts of John I.E.'s legacy in the Yellowstone franchise, whether that's by preserving his impact or by keeping his defining traits alive in the franchise. Seeing their story continue via their own spin-offs is the best way to highlight Costner's impact on the show. In fact, it would be difficult to craft Beth and Rip's future without acknowledging the influence John I.E. had on them. Because of the way Costner exited Yellowstone, the chances of him returning to the franchise are very slim to none. Sheridan had to be creative in the final episodes of the main show to be able to properly send John I.E. off, even when the narrative revealed that he was killed early on. Admittedly, the new show decides to use previously unseen footage of John I.E. via flashbacks or visions. Perhaps it can also tap a body double for it. However, it's highly unlikely that Costner will ever reprise his role again in the neo-Western series. There's a new sun rising over the Dutton Ranch, and it's not John Dutton lighting the morning fire. Instead, it's Beth and Rip stepping into the spotlight in a much-anticipated Yellowstone spinoff that confirms something fans and critics alike have long suspected. Taylor Sheridan may create new plots, pen gritty monologues, and design entire ranch empires. But he cannot, no matter how far he rides, escape the long shadow of Kevin Costner's legacy. Let's be clear. Beth Dutton and Rip Wheeler are arguably Yellowstone's most iconic couple. The fiery chaos of Beth, played with feral brilliance by Kelly Rayleigh, and the stoic intensity of Rip, brought to life by Cole Hauser's quiet magnetism, have become fan obsessions. The chemistry is off the charts, the loyalty unmatched, the damage undeniable. A spin-off centering on these two should feel like a natural evolution. But it doesn't. It feels like a ghost story. Because no matter how thrilling their storyline may be, whether it's set in a Montana pasture or some dusty outpost in Texas, the specter of John Dutton lingers like a Marlboro Man mirage. Kevin Costner didn't just play a character in Yellowstone. He became the spine of the entire Western drama revival. The very DNA of the franchise pulses with Costner's gravelly voice, his silent stares, his moral contradictions. His presence shaped not only the Dutton family, but also Sheridan's entire storytelling approach. Man versus land, legacy versus modernity, justice versus vengeance. And now, in this Beth and Rip spinoff, we're seeing the unintended consequences of building a universe around a singular figure. With Costner having all but ridden into the sunset, the spinoff arrives like a lonely cattle call, still echoing his name in every canyon and hollow. Even Beth, for all her biting insults and rage-fueled monologues, was forged in her father's emotional crucible. Every insult she spits, every bank she burns, carries traces of John Dutton's ideology. Rip, too, was branded, literally and emotionally, by John's approval. Sheridan might want to focus on these two as standalone forces, but it's like trying to talk about Batman without mentioning Bruce Wayne's parents. The origin story is too intrinsic. Of course, the spin-off tries to find its footing. Early teasers suggest a shift in tone, perhaps a more character-driven approach, focused on emotional healing, betrayal, and the hard cost of loyalty. There are whispers of the couple leaving the Yellowstone Ranch for new land, new battles, maybe even a shot at peace. But can these two broken souls truly exist outside the orbit of John Dutton's command? Every scene begs the question, what would John have said? What would he have done? And in doing so, it chips away at their independence. It's no fault of Rayleigh or Hauser, who pour everything they have into these roles. They embody Beth and Rip with a kind of furious grace. But Sheridan's pen still dances to the rhythm of Costner's legacy. Every subplot feels like it's asking permission from the past. You can practically hear Costner's cowboy boots echoing in the writer's room. It's a creative paradox. How do you expand a universe while your muse is still the sun around which it orbits? In interviews, Sheridan has insisted that the Yellowstone universe is bigger than any one man. And on paper, he's right. There are prequels, 1883, 1923, and more sequels coming, 2024, or whatever it ends up being called. But there's a difference between scale and soul. The soul of Yellowstone, rugged, noble, flawed, is forever tethered to Costner's portrayal of John Dutton. It's in the way he surveyed the ranch as if it were Eden and hell combined. It's in the way his love for the land was indistinguishable from his pride and self-righteousness. That soul bleeds into Beth and Rip, whether Sheridan wants it to or not. Even the visual language of the spinoff betrays its attachment to the past. The trailers are soaked in that same sepia-toned nostalgia. The shots of horses thundering across golden hills, the close-ups of Beth's whiskey-slick smirks, Rip's mournful eyes under the brim of a dusty hat. It all screams Yellowstone classic, not reinvention. The music swells with the same Americana ache. It's beautiful, but it's haunted. And maybe that's the point. Maybe Sheridan isn't trying to escape Costner's legacy after all. Maybe he's embracing it, even if subconsciously. Perhaps the Beth and Rip spinoff isn't meant to be a clean break, but rather a eulogy in motion. A way of saying, we still feel him, even when he's gone. It's grief in the form of Western drama. Characters attempting to live their own lives, while tethered to the myth of a man who shaped them. Still, one has to wonder how long this ghost can walk. Can the franchise survive if every show feels like an echo of Costner's performance? Or will it eventually need to define new myths, new men and women to mythologize, new lands to die for?